I wanted to take a moment also and thank the VA Appropriations Committee for writing their bill, which fully funds the Department of Veterans Affairs, despite the continued comments from the administration and from the left that Republicans don't want to fund or want to cut funding from veterans. Nothing could be further from the truth. And some of you up here today have participated in a bed of lies, bullshit and lies regarding the debt ceiling. And quite frankly, it's extremely disrespectful to our veterans to posit or even to accuse us of wanting to cut VA benefits. None of us up here on the left or the right, Democrats or Republicans, want to do that. We are concerned about the lack of accountability, waste, fraud, and abuse within the VA. I am also concerned with that enormously. And looking at the COVID supplemental funding, as we've been discussing today, the fraud and abuse in that is appalling. The VA received roughly $40 billion in extra funding between 2020 and 2021. When the OIG audited $14.5 billion of the money, the OIG found the record keeping was usually incomplete. It was not signed. There were a lack of descriptions of purpose, no documentation, in some cases none at all existed. So I have a few questions this morning. Mr. Missel, my first one is for you. Did your report say the VA struggled to account for CARES funds, failing to maintain audit trails for majority of internal transfers, failed to adhere to internal controls, and 10,000 plus supply purchases or service contracts worth over 187 million, yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Roszkowski, would you consider not being able to account for $187 million fraud, waste, and abuse?
I would not.
I'm sorry. So if I gave you $187 million and you didn't know what to do with it, you wouldn't call that waste?
No, unless it's proven as fraud, waste, and abuse. It could just be the fact you didn't have a receipt, but when you look farther, which we have, and we find the receipt.
So okay. So in Mr. Missel's report, that they couldn't find, they didn't have information on $187 million. So if you just spend that money and you don't have the receipts, you would not call it waste. I don't know how you have your job, quite frankly, if that's your position. Based on that example, do you think that the VA has any issues with waste, fraud, and abuse?
We absolutely do. Yes, we do.
And where would that be?
It's across the system, and we work very diligently to root it out. But there's a difference between fraud, waste, and abuse and not having a receipt or an accounting anomaly or a journal voucher. There's a big difference between those.
Yeah, I would say if you spent $187 million, you know where it went, that was definitely waste, fraud, and abuse, and so would the American taxpayer and so would our veterans. Do you think $187 million could have helped veterans if you knew what it was actually spent on?
I know it was spent on veterans, so I think it did help them.
Yeah, I would disagree with your position on that. This hearing's findings reveal a troubling lack of oversight. I've heard my colleagues on our side of the aisle talk about that lack of internal controls within the VA and inability to adequately document transfers of funds. You say you have the receipts, but Mr. Missel's report says otherwise. Lack of adherence to fiscal controls are clear indicators of a system that's in disarray. These shortcomings can't be ignored as they've been a result of the inability for the VA to account for significant sums of money. We have many veterans on our committee today, and I concur and agree with the frustration that they have. Almost every one of my family members has either been through the VA or will be in their future, because almost all of them have served, and they deserve so much better than what they're getting today, particularly with the chip that you have on your shoulder and your testimony before this committee. Maybe leave it at the door next time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and any extra time I have, I will yield to General Bergman. Thank you.